Okay, today I'm going to show you how to install the button repair pad in the Uniden phone. This pad works in a lot of different Uniden phones. If you have a silver button that stops working and it's about the size of a nickel and it's a Uniden phone, this will probably work in it, but please check the product description for your model just to be safe. Very common, this button completely fails. It's a different design than the rest. And this fails first, and there's I don't know how many, probably a dozen or more different Uniden models with the same design. This one is a TCX905. So I'm going to show you how to do this one. Take the battery cover and the battery out, and there's two screws down here. So you need a Phillips screwdriver, maybe a flat screwdriver. I like tweezers. You might need a sharp blade to help peel the paper backing off. And isopropyl alcohol, 90% is the best. 90, 91%. You can get away with 70, but if you can get 90, that's good. It has less water in it. But basically, it's pretty easy to do. You take the two screws out. I believe all the Uniden phones only have two screws at the bottom, but look to see if there's four. And then what I like to do is just apply a little pressure on the bottom after you take those screws out. So you try to pull it apart a little bit, and then I'm going to use a flat screwdriver, and I'm not going to pry. I'm just going to put it in there and kind of slide it, and it forces it out. And yeah, there, I got it open wider. I'm going to go over to the other side and be careful not to push hard and jam it into your finger. I'm just going to slide it like that, and it forces the clip apart without prying. Yeah. So now I can get this out a little bit more, and I stick my thumb and finger in there to kind of keep it pried apart with a little bit of pressure, and just go up like that, and the rest of them will pop out. So there's just two clips on each side, and there's a big one at the top. Just sort of wiggle it like that, and you don't want to pull on this because there's a speaker wire, and you'll rip it off the board if you just yank on it. So just wiggle it until it pops out. So this one has more screws than usual. There's two here, and then there's a third one kind of hidden there, and two more here. And they are different sizes in some of them. These are the two longest screws for the back housing on the bottom here. Now, you can use any small Phillips screwdriver, but I'm going to cheat and have a power screwdriver. In this particular design, the three on the bottom board and the large board are tiny. And then the two on the daughter board are a little bit longer. And then the two are on the back housing are even longer still. So just make sure you don't get these mixed up. So then once you got the screws out, I like to just grab this little wire, which is part of the charging circuit there, and gently pull it out. And then flip it over like that. So we have the buttons here that go bad, and they're a different design than all these others. These are a snap dome. Normally you don't need to take this out probably, but you could. This one has a little bit of oil on it from the rubber. Not really a problem. If you want to, you can clean that off with a rag and maybe a tiny bit of rubbing alcohol. But try not to disturb those black dots because they can rub off on some of them. It depends how old it is. I'm just going to clean that up a little bit. There's some oil on here. If you wanted to, you could clean that up with a Q-tip, and maybe a Q-tip with isopropyl on it. If it was really nasty, like the phone was dirty and a lot of dirt in here, you can pull this right out and bring it to the sink. Clean it with hot water, maybe hot and soapy water. Be careful in this one. There's a little spring, and it goes over a pin in the center of this silver button right there. And there's really nothing else holding it in place. So when you put that rubber keypad back in there, and the spring kind of pushes this middle part out. And if that's crooked, like if it's fallen out and just sort of sideways, it's not going to work right. But the most important thing is to clean the circuit board. If there's any oils and stuff on here, then nothing's going to stick to it, and you're going to have dirt on the buttons still. That'll stop it from working. So you clean that up. If you want to, you could use a Q-tip, anything like that. So the button repair, this is made of 3 different layers, and we got to peel off the brown paper liner and stick it down onto the circuit board. And there's 4 dots, and they're going to line up with those 4 there. Now some of the models, it's not as obvious, like the button contacts are dark and there's lines that are dark, and you might be a little confused on which buttons you're trying to line up with. And to make it easier, you could put that white layer down like that, and then they stand out much better. I usually just sort of pick at it with my fingernail on the edge like that, but some people have trouble. Like, see, I got it started there. Some people have trouble. I don't know, you'd have to have really sharp tweezers, but if you can carefully use like a X-Acto knife or a razor blade, you could go in and use that to kind of help you get started if you have trouble with your fingernails. And the thing you want to worry, once you start that paper, it comes off really easy. Some people have actually tried to pry. There's multiple layers of plastic here, and they're adhesive and stuck together, so it's not easy to come apart. But I've had some people contact me and say it was splitting apart and really hard to take this paper liner off, because they weren't taking the paper liner off, they were splitting the clear plastic in 2. So just so you know, it's really easy to take off once you get it started. So then the only thing you have to do is line it up somewhat. You don't have to get perfect, but you want the black dots to be over the button contacts, and you want it inside that circle as best you can. So just sort of line it up and put it down. And I want it to be flat too. I don't want it to be warped or bent, so I'm gonna lay it down like that, and then that's it. I'm not gonna touch it. I'm not gonna poke at it. It's not gonna come off at this point. So then I'm gonna put this back in on this side. Make sure that spring is not sideways or whatever. And I can feel the spring. I'm pushing on this, and it's springing back. You might have gotten fingerprints or anything on the display. You could clean that off. At this point, the clean dry rag is the best. If it's got isopropyl on it, it'll leave smears and stuff. You know, if you got anything in there, you could clean that off. If you have a can of air, you know, you could blow it out if it's dusty. So you get that all set, and then I'm going to flip this back over like that. If I turn this over, all the stuff's just going to fall apart, the keypad parts. So I'm putting that over like that. Now I'm going to hold the board in and flip it over and just make sure it all looks good and the buttons are in the right spot and this thing works. Yeah, so flip it back over. Now in this one, remember, we got 3 little screws for the 3 positions on the main board, and they're in this one, they're surrounded with white to let you know that's where they go. And then we have the 2 longer ones for that. Now you want to make sure you're not pinching this wire like in the housing or anything when you put it together, so I'm just kind of watching that. And then I'm going to start up at the top, and I got that in place, and then everything here is lined up good, and just it snaps together really easy. And let's put those last 2 screws in. Yeah, if you have, you know, big fingers or whatever, sometimes I've used tweezers to line up. I didn't tell you that at that time, but you could use the tweezers to kind of grab the edge of the repair pad, and when you're lining it up on the board, and place it down easier. So anyway, okay, I got it back together. Now I'm going to plug in a power source, the battery, and we'll watch that come on. And then, yep, now the buttons work again. And that's it. Other models are a little different. The circuit board might look different or whatever, but it's really the same thing. There's screws holding the board down. There's that white snap dome layer for everything except for this. And you can use that white snap dome layer to line up where the repair pad goes. And that's it. Thanks for watching.